You have done what was expected. We respect you, please.
Afande, you know, if you're doing a...
The setup is that for like the kidney transplant, you have 2 theaters because the recipient and donor have to be on theater beds at the same time because it should not take more than 30 minutes for that kidney to be taken from one patient to another. And, you know, that dispels those social media allegations that people come with the cold boxes to take kidneys from here and they take them abroad. Now, if you have the capacity of many ICUs for taking care of these patients, because you do not want these patients after operation and also the donor, we really take maximum care even for the donor, because you don't want a healthy person to come and get any complications. So we could even operate 2 patients in a day or more if we have set up ourselves and we have the human resource for post-operative care. For now, we are limiting it to a few numbers as we build that capacity. And remember, there are other logistics required. The patient workup is also very tedious exercise. The nephrologists take real good time to work up these patients to prepare them for the transplant. Then post-transplant also needs that care, both for the donor and the recipient. The donor will tend to heal because this is a healthy person and can be discharged home, but the recipient actually will continue to have care throughout his life, and you have to monitor them and taper down the medication which they give. So you'll hear more from the nephrologists, the surgeons, but like we said, the operation may take like 4 hours, but the preparation takes quite long for the recipient and the donor, and even the preparation in the theaters. So those are the bottlenecks. Then all the medicines and sundries that are required. The examinations are not cheap. The medicines we use and all the sundries we use are not cheap. So the other bottlenecks, apart from the human resource, the gymnastics of preparing the patients, we also have the other bottleneck of the funds to take care of the medicines and sundries. But once we have established our workflow very well, we are going to scale up on the numbers which we work on. I thank you.
Medical tourism in this country, it's one thing that you cannot say you will entirely eliminate, because there are times when you have conditions that you cannot manage, or there are times when you'll have patients that you desire to attend to, but then because of the numbers that you have, you find yourself having a long waiting time, and therefore requiring that you seek for support from other people or from colleagues so that you can be able to restore people's lives. But as a country, we are committed to increase our capacities in conducting organ transplant surgeries, and we have already indicated this by starting with kidney transplant. Liver transplant is already underway, and we have several healthcare workers that have been trained, those that are already on attachment to several hospitals out of this country, both in India, Turkey, and some in Egypt, that we are hoping that by the close of the year, we'll be able to increase our capacity from the one that we have done today, and we hope by the end of the year we'll have a bigger capacity that shall be documented. And as we go along, we'll be providing this information to the media, and we'll be walking this journey together, and the whole entire country will be getting to know what exactly we are doing to demonstrate the capacities that have been built. When is the Organ Transplant Council going to be instituted? The Organ Transplant Council is already instituted. It's just that it's not yet fully operational. And that is because of a few intricacies that we are seeking to address before we go full throttle in conducting organ transplant. But the council is already in place, and it's the full operationalization that is still underway. Yes. Thank you.
You are concerned about the Mulago. Can you hear me? Can you switch on my? Yeah, the executive director position. My board does not appoint leaders for the hospital, but because we oversee, we recommend. At our last meeting in November, we noted that the position of ED is now vacant. We made a recommendation to the minister, and on the 7th of December, I had occasion to be with the minister at the close of the year for the hospital. I followed up my letter with a word about it, and the minister acknowledged receipt of my letter, and she told me that she's taking it up with the appointing authority. The board is as interested in a substantive head as you are, so thank you for your concern. So what my board has done is to make sure that everything that an acting needs to be able to be effective is being done. So our acting is not inhibited in any way from running this hospital efficiently. I want, for example, to assure you that she has all the powers of an accounting officer at the head of this hospital. So as we wait for the appointing authority to make the last word, which we don't have power over, I think the hospital is in safe hands. I thank you.
1969, Neil Armstrong, as he made the first moon landing, said and is quoted, "One small step for a man and a giant leap for mankind." Today we are celebrating what may look like a small step for one man, but it is a giant leap for that very man, our patient. We have been referring to him as R. Soon we are going to show you his face, and we'll disclose his name. Having had end-stage kidney disease, having been on dialysis for 2 years, that patient is now a free man, and that's a huge leap for that patient, and so it's worth celebrating. It is a huge leap for Mulago National Referral Hospital, as is often referred to as the Supreme Court of Health. We are indeed taking up our position to do what others have not done before. So it's a giant leap for Mulago Hospital. It's a giant leap for the transplant program. We have always talked in innuendos for almost 12 years. It's happening this year, it's happening next year, this month. But now it's no longer a question of if, and it's even no longer a question of when, but has happened, and the journey has started. And it is indeed a giant leap for the nation of Uganda. 61 years of independence. We are beginning to sit on the table of men, do things which big men do, not boys anymore. Big men do these things. And when we are all clamoring for middle income, when we begin doing these kinds of things, then for sure, at least now we can say Mulago is in the middle income bracket, because middle income comes not only earning, it's also in services that one can afford to procure. The transplant program, having had its first transplant, now opens a door to a couple of things. One, establishing a robust transplant program which will be regular and routine. For that one, I can also say it's no longer a question of if, but now the when has moved from the maiden transplant to when we can do a regular transplant. And like we have delivered the when for the maiden transplant, I can assure you we're also going to deliver the when on how regular we can be. Again, we're going to keep you guessing. That's very intentional. You like breaking news, and in breaking it, you actually break it. So we don't want you to break our news literally. But when we begin doing regular surgery, you'll get to know. And let me conclude by saying that our mantra is organ transplant on Ugandans, in Uganda, and by Ugandans. Organ transplant on Ugandans is already happening, has been happening. Kenya, India, Turkey, and so on and so forth. What we are celebrating is the transplant of a Ugandan in Uganda. The next step, yeah, if you are clapping, please clap. The next step is for us to have organ transplant on Ugandans in Uganda by exclusively Ugandan teams. Don't try to make us run. Let us walk there and reach. How is our patient? How is our patient? We have celebrated so far about 7 milestones. I'll go through them. For us, when we bring the graft kidney and put it in the recipient, and it reperfuses, it means it has received blood afresh, and produces urine, we celebrate. In theater, we celebrate. That celebration we made. When the donor begins getting their renal functions coming back to normal, we celebrate. That milestone we passed. His kidneys have now returned the normal function. When the recipient does not show any signs of rejection or infection, we celebrate. And that one we have already celebrated. When the recipient, when the donor is discharged, because for us the donor is a very delicate person. When the donor is discharged alive and well, we celebrate, and that one we have already celebrated. Finally, when we discharge the recipient alive and well, we celebrate, and that's why we're here. How is our donor? How is our recipient? I will share the podium with my colleague, Dr. Peace Wagasha, who has been taking care of the donor and the recipient, to tell us how they are. Are they back to full swing, and so on and so forth. And then I will come back and tell you how we're going to move forward coming from here. Thank you.
Comment. So I just want to talk about the donor, and my colleague, Dr. Yoko, will talk about the recipient. So before we take out a kidney from anyone, we do a lot of screening, just like our ED has said. We do a lot of screening to ensure that someone is entirely healthy. And the reason why we chose our donor is because he was a very healthy young man, 28-year-old man, very healthy young man. And because he's very healthy, the outcomes are usually very good. So our donor has actually, after coming out of theater, not had any severe complications related to his operation. He's currently taking only pain-killing medication to reduce the pain from the surgery site, where they removed the kidney from. His wound has healed very well. Usually we put a drain for a few days. We remove the drain, and the site where the drain was has equally healed very well. He's walking around, he's ambulating, he has not gotten any fevers, he's not gotten any infections, and we actually want to get him out of hospital so that he can pick up any infections. Because he's a very healthy young man right from the start, we don't anticipate that he will get any complications following the surgery. And because of that, we review him every 3 months. And the main things that we review him when we see him every 3 months is to check, make sure his blood pressures are okay. Sometimes the blood pressures may go a little bit high, but we check to make sure blood pressures are okay, and generally check his general health. After 1 year, we actually don't need to see him again after that. The outcomes usually for a donor are usually good because we know that we've picked properly, and because this is a kind of surgery that gives us time to select properly, then we don't usually pick patients to donate or to give out a kidney if there's likely that there's something that might not be right with that patient. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Director. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues. Muluganda, Dr. Peace Wagasha, Dr. Asimwe, babadde boogera abadde ayogera ku mulwadde abadde mulwadde w'ensigo abadde ku dialysis ng'ensigo zasiriira kati afunye ensigo empya. Mwana wa myaka 24 afunye ensigo yalina obulwadde bwe tuyita glomerulonephritis obwasiriza ensigo. Eyamuwadde ensigo muganda we wa myaka 28 bonna bali bulungi. Ow'emyaka 24 yakyasigadde wano gwe tugenda okusibula enkya oba katugambe leero olw'eggulo. Owa 28 muganda we yamuwa ensigo ye yazzeeyo eka. Although he's still in the compound, I think. Naye yamuwa ensigo yali bulungi, twamusiibula kati wiiki emu n'okusubawo yali bulungi. Kati nga bakuutira buli omu ali wano namawulire tugambe Bannayuganda nti kirungi nnyo okugaba ensigo, ekibumba, amawugwe, eriiso, eddiba. Ono agabye ensigo asigaza ensigo emu naye tumala mukebera okulaba nti ali fit okugaba ensigo n'asigaza ensigo emu n'abeera bulungi. N'oli afunye ensigo abeera afunye ensigo ey'okusatu n'ebbiri ze yali alina ezaafa n'aba nga tumugattako ensigo n'abeera n'ensigo emu n'ekitundu. Ziri zo tetuzijjaamu, zo ziba zisigala nga zikola yadde katono naye n'ensigo ebeegatta ku ziri. Ono asigaza ensigo emu ejja kugejja ebeere ng'ensigo bbiri ezzeewo ensigo eri gy'agabye abeera nga talina loosi yonna. Kyekimu n'ekibumba ogabako kitundu, ekibumba ne kiddamu ne kikula n'ofuna ng'olina ekibumba kiramba n'osevinga abaana babiri n'ekibumba ekitundu. N'olwekyo bw'obanga ogabye ensigo ng'okyali wansi w'emyaka 45 Katonda yatutonda ne tubeera nga tusobola kuzzaawo kiri kyogabye muno n'omuwa ku mulamu naawe n'osigala ng'oli mulamu. Ndowooza kyekyo kati tusimbudde mukitegere tusimbudde nti bulijjo twali tugamba tubasindike India naye kati tugenda kikolera wano bubbu by Uganda. This time Transplant Ugandans in Uganda. Kyekyo ku kyoli omwana asigadde ono atuwadde ensigo badde ngenda kyogera mu Luzungu kantabulemu mangu nti talina buzibu. Wali eyambuuza nti ayagala medical fitness to travel eya donor alyoka ayingire mu nnyonyi ne mugamba n'ow'ennyonyi pilot wamwe is not as fit as our donor kubanga donor tumala mukeberera ddala kyonna from head to toe tetusigaza kintu kyonna tukola holistic wellness check-up socio-economical, psycho-spiritual, socio-political byonna tukebera. Bw'atuukira okugenda okugaba ensigo abeera fit nnyo okugenda mu nnyonyi. Okay? So nwero ekyo twagala kujjawo okutya gaba ensigo naye okusingawo tujje tukole prevention is better than cure. Tugende mu ddwaliro nga tukyali balamu okuva ng'ogenda kuwasa oba kufumbirwa jangu okebere oba oli fit okufumbirwa oba oli fit okuzaala. Laba naawe wagenda okwegatta nti omwana tomuwa sikosero, pressure, sukaali, HIV byokka bemumanyi n'obwavu n'obukodo n'obulogo. So n'olwekyo twandibadde tuddayo nti prevention is better than cure. Tujje for holistic wellness check-up as a culture ey'ensi eno. Era tusuubira tukutira gavumenti tukiteeke mu ssira tugambe buli omu agenda okufuna omulimu okuba okuwasa ajje ng'alina fitness document egamba nti oli fit. And after that, after transplant, tugamba abalwadde bonna abafunye ensigo mujje for continuous check-up for the rest of your life so that pressure sukaali aleme kusiriza ensigo eno gy'ofunye. Dona ye after nga bakoze transplant tebakomawo. Tulina abalwadde nga almost 4 n'okusoba naye badona baabwe bonna bazadde bakoze ebintu byabwe tulabako baki balwadde bokka bakomawo kunona ddagala. Finally, to government we are thinking, we are praying that we can treat patients post-transplant as a special needs group like HIV/AIDS. Let government come to their aid because life after transplant costs anything between $7,000 and $10,000 per year for a good checkup for good brands of tacrolimus. The good news is the patients are now celebrating. They are saying government is now going to give them drugs. Those who have been struggling to buy this drug. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's in the interest of time. I'm going to request that we go to the discharge process. And the one will read the tube. I will take the representative of the PS. The chair will read the tube. I will take the representative of the PS. The chair will...
Ladies and gentlemen, before us, Mark, the recipient, and supporting the patient, and Stephen, who donated the kit. They are not yet free to interact with society, partly because the medicine we give him to stop the rejection, so we discourage a lot of interaction with the community. That's why they must remain in the masses. We're extremely very happy that